Hello everyone, you are watching a snippet of Countdown from March 30th, 2023. Today is Thursday. See the full version on Patreon. The plot about the detention of Alexei Moskalev and the activity of good Russians look at Dailymotion. And I'm moving on to the main thing. Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin said that the Ukrainian army has every chance for a successful offensive. The Kremlin knows about this. They are nervous and are preparing their strategy of defeat under the legend of victory. Even Solovyev admits, we must wait for a counteroffensive, about which no one knows anything. That is, they know that it is being prepared, but that's all, and this is especially alarming. Plans to call on another 400,000 contractors for roasting may remain plans. British intelligence reports it is unlikely that the campaign will bring in 400,000 real volunteers. In addition, restoring the combat power of the Russian army in Ukraine will require not only personnel, more ammunition and military equipment is needed than is currently available. The propagandist Sladkov howls about the imminent arrival of 50,000 fighters from the DPRK, and that supposedly 800,000 organisms from Kim Jong-un signed up as volunteers in just a day. But this is all fantasy, if only because if North Korea enters the war, the very configuration of the conflict changes, and why not, on the other hand, enter the war for the same Poland? And not only to her. China, on whose military resources Putin made a special bet, is cautious in making general statements. The Chinese Ministry of Defense assured that the Chinese army is ready to cooperate with the Russian one to further strengthen strategic communication and coordination. The Chinese army is ready, together with the Russian army, to maintain regional peace and security, the PRC Ministry of Defense specified. And, in fact, everything. Beijing is waiting for Xi Jinping's decision on a visit to Kyiv, which could change the view of the Chinese comrades on the entire military campaign. So far, China is sending 41 specialists who must finally reconfigure the intricave network, turning the internet into a cavenet. YouTube will not just be blocked, its traffic will be slowed down, as a result of which the Russians simply will not be able to download and watch videos on this resource. No VPNs will help. Sovkontakte with the major is preparing to take on an increase in traffic and a massive wave of new users. This resource is already signing contracts with cave opinion leaders and popular bloggers who are drastically reorienting themselves, changing color and changing their shoes into Yudashkin's bast shoes. Against the backdrop of the upcoming killer news from the Ukrainian fronts, not a single furry person should guess what is happening in reality. Therefore, all Western servers should be inaccessible to Russian consumers of information. The information field should be completely controlled by the Kremlin, and any squeak from below should be shut up, and its source should be cleaned up with extreme speed and demonstrative cruelty. How to explain the defeat in the war to the depths? What to answer the question, why is Crimea no longer ours and why was this war started? The Kremlin does not plan to respond. He will throw in patterns about winning, even if it has signs of defeat. All the same, this is a victory, because the main goal of the special operation has been achieved. Russia has defended its identity, its traditions and preserved itself. For this there were coffins and fresh graves. Our heroic orcs have defended our independence from the West. Ukraine lost, it lost its historical identity, betraying the memory of its ancestors and even the Ukrainian Orthodox Church with special shoulder straps under the cassock. All this will be broadcast for days on end, so that no questions or even doubts arise. And for those who doubt, there are relevant articles in the criminal code, and an army of scammers, for whom the long-awaited finest hour has come. Yes, the war will be lost, and even in an online meeting with the government, the bald geostrategist admitted that the negative consequences of sanctions are inevitable. Because you can lie about victories as much as you like, but the West will not remove sanctions from you, but, on the contrary, will only tighten them. Over the year, the central bank lost almost 722 billion rubles, 27 times more than a year earlier. Putin has already been informed that despite the planned budget deficit of 2.9 trillion rubles for the year, by March this plan was overfulfilled and amounted to 3.3 trillion rubles. A word from the 90s loomed on the horizon. sequestration, a reduction in expenditures in the execution of individual articles or the entire state budget due to miscalculations in its preparation. First, they will cut civil servants and entire apparatuses in the regions, at the lower levels, then they will move to the middle. Either way, the experience of China can be adopted in the pension issue. In China, they do not pay pensions at all. So retirees, get ready. You voted for Putin and united Russia so enthusiastically that gratitude will not keep you waiting. The bald-headed victorious, as always, will blame the West for everything. But you have to blame your own reflection in the mirror, and to thank him for the alluring cemetery stability. Become our patrons now and look further in this program. Putin's nuclear exercises will not change the plans of the armed forces of Ukraine for the upcoming offensive. Croatia supplies Mi-8 helicopters, France, wheeled tanks. The planned counterattack follows the arrival of Challenger 2 and Leopard 2 tanks in Ukraine in late March, with the US also expediting the deployment of Abrams tanks and Patriot missile systems to Ukraine. Alexei Moskalev was detained in Minsk, who escaped from court for an anti-war drawing by his daughter, a schoolgirl. Earlier, the ex-editor of Channel 1 Ovsyannikova, who is in France, blurted out some details of his flight. In Yekaterinburg, FSB officers detained the Wall Street Journal journalist Evan Gershkovich. Kremlin terrorists replenish their exchange fund for the West. Xi Jinping made a statement that China is preparing for war. This was stated by the head of China at the annual meeting of the Chinese parliament and its highest political advisory body. And in the cave itself, the war of all against all is gaining momentum. In Novomoskovsk, Tula region, security forces had to use weapons to detain a local resident accused of discrediting Putin's army. Against the backdrop of increased crimes involving the mentally ill, the State Duma started talking about tightening control over citizens prone to dangerous actions due to mental illness. The only pity is that no one will follow the Kremlin psychos. And that is all. See the full version on Patreon. And thanks to everyone who is becoming our patrons right now. I hugged everyone. Meet tomorrow on Friday Live. Glory to Ukraine.